All right, so in this video, we're examining topic 1.4, state building in the Americas. And we talk about the Americas, we're looking at North America and South America. So, one of the biggest misconceptions students have is that advanced civilizations only existed in Europe, Asia, and Africa. In reality, societies in the Americas really developed sophisticated governments, impressive cities, extensive trade networks, and innovative agricultural systems. So as we move through this lesson, I really want you to focus on three major AP World themes. So such as politics, environment, and innovation, and even social. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain how societies in the Americas develop complex states capable of governing large populations and difficult environments. So, as we begin, remember that the Americas were incredibly diverse. So, civilizations developed in river valleys, forests, lakes, deserts, and mountains. So, just like civilizations elsewhere in the world, these societies had to solve problems related to food production, transportation, political authority, and social organization. So, let's begin with the Cahokias. So, they're one of the largest urban centers in North America, and they were located in the Mississippi River Valley. So the Cahokias demonstrated that complex societies existed in North America long before Europeans ever stepped foot as far as contact. So at its peak, the Cahokia civilization may have had between 20,000 to 40,000 people, even competing with a lot of other European cities like London at the same time. So the Cahokia leaders built enormous earthen mounds, one being the famous monk mounds, which really served as a religious and political center. So the society really developed a clear social hierarchy and an extensive trade network that linked communities across North America. So remember, these are common themes we keep seeing throughout the topics of hierarchies and trade being important, no different. So the economies is the E of pieces. So the economy was based on agriculture, particularly maize cultivation. So we call it corn now, but they called it maize back then, um, as well as squash and beans. And these are usually called the Three Sisters. What else? So trade brought goods such as copper, shells, and mica from distant regions. So the Cahokia show us that urbanization, trade, and political organization were not limited to just Afro-Eurasia. So eventually, though, environmental challenges, flooding, and social unrest contributed to the Cahokia's decline after 1350. So this is an important reminder that environmental pressures can weaken even complex societies. So the Mayans are important because they provide historical context for later civilizations such as the Aztecs. So the Mayans adopted to a variety of environmental issues and areas. So they would use slash and burn agriculture, and slash and burn is basically like when you go through and kind of cut down a lot of trees and forests and use that environment or use that area for agricultural purposes. So terracing and raised field farming. So they built impressive cities, including Tikal and a few others. So Mayan society was very organized with rulers, priests, warriors, and merchants and farmers all occupying distinct places in society. So their social and political traditions really helped establish the patterns that later civilizations in Mesoamerica would build upon. So as we look at these structures, notice the engineering and the organization that required to build them. So unlike the Aztecs or the Incas, which we'll talk about in the next video, the Mayans never really formed one unified empire. So instead, they were organized into independent city states. So cities such as Tikal often competed with one another, other cities through warfare and trade. So their economy was based largely on agriculture and trade. So the Mayans exchanged goods such as coca, salt, ceramics through those trade networks. So for you as an AP World student, The key thing to remember is that the Mayans were organized as city states rather than a centralized empire. And think about city states as like independent counties like we have in Georgia. So the Mayans serve as an important reminder or example of continuity. So remember that continuity and change we talked about as a reading skill. So many cultural, political, and economic practices in later Mesoamerican civilizations can be tracked back to the Mayan tradition. So the Mayans made extraordinary intellectual contributions. So they developed a hieroglyphic writing system, advanced mathematics that included the concept of zero, and highly accurate calendars based on astronomical observations. So these achievements demonstrate that scientific and intellectual innovations occur throughout America or the Americas and not just Afro Eurasia. All right, so I'm going to stop right here and we'll pick up in part two.